All right, so let's talk about some international news. The Israeli parliament has approved a motion to adopt President Trump's peace plan in Gaza.
That proposal is now heading to the Knesset's Foreign Affairs Committee for more deliberations. This 20-point plan includes everything from a redevelopment of Gaza to an exchange of hostages and detainees. Hamas has just returned the body of another hostage. There is only now one body left to be returned. And since the ceasefire began in October, the Gazan Ministry of Health says Israel has killed more than 340 people in Gaza and injured more than 800 others.
Joining us to talk about the efforts to establish peace in Gaza and beyond is Stephen Cook from the Council on Foreign Relations. Stephen, thank you so much for being with us. As Judy just mentioned, there are more than 340 Palestinians killed, more than 889 injured since the ceasefire began. We knew it was fragile when it was instituted. How do you think things are going thus far?
Going particularly well. The Israelis reserve the right under the agreement to enforce the ceasefire, and that's why you are seeing the number of killed and injured in Gaza as a result. There is still pockets of Hamas resistance. There was 200 Hamas fighters left in a tunnel that the Israelis had to give up or die in that tunnel. And there have been sporadic clashes between those Hamas fighters trying to escape that tunnel and IDF troops. But the real issue here is the fact that Hamas has, from the very beginning, been in violation of the agreement. It has refused to disarm, which is a critical part of President Trump's 20-point peace plan. It has also signaled that it is seeking a political role in post-war Gaza, which is also a violation of the 20-point peace plan. Even though the Israeli Knesset has advanced approval of Trump's peace plan, there's no one in Israel who believes it will move much further than where it is right now. I should point out there is one hostage left in Gaza, the remains of one hostage. That's also a violation of the ceasefire. All hostages, dead and alive, were supposed to have been returned to Israel after 72 hours. So, yes, it is fragile, but it's hard to see how this is a peace process, a ceasefire going forward that can be productive.
Assuming that last body is returned, do you see Israel ultimately changing its strategy if that does happen?
Well, the Israelis are sitting on what's called the yellow line, which is an agreed upon withdrawal line. And they have said, in accordance with the agreement, they will not withdraw from that yellow line until Hamas is disarmed and there is a governing structure in Gaza that does not include Hamas. Neither of those things seem likely to happen going forward. In fact, Qatar and Turkey have been trying to litigate the 20-point plan to allow for Hamas to hold on to weapons and for Hamas to play a role in government. These are red lines for the Israelis. So right now, it seems that the Israelis are going to be on the yellow line for quite some time, and they are digging in there. I think there is a recognition that they are going to be there. Parallel to this, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is putting together a plan for the redevelopment of that 53% of the Gaza Strip that the Israelis control on the east side of this yellow line, in the hopes that if you develop it, Palestinians will be drawn from the Hamas-controlled sector of Gaza to this area. Remains very unclear whether that will happen or that Hamas will even allow people to move to this sector of Gaza that's under Israeli control, and how long all of this will take.
We know Israel said it's going to be reopening the Rafah border crossing, but only one way, allowing Palestinians to leave Gaza. We know Egyptian officials have called for the crossing to be open both ways because they simply don't want Palestinian refugees in Egypt. In terms of pressure from Israel's neighbors, what do you see there? Is there any sort of movement that we might expect the Israeli government to make when it comes to how it handles Palestinian refugees?
Well, the relationship with Egypt in particular has become fraught over the last 2 years, given the fact that there was so much smuggling under the Gaza-Egypt frontier, and even through this Rafah border crossing. There is also, obviously, a very serious Egyptian security concern about Hamas fighters leaving Gaza under cover of civilians and implanting themselves either in the Sinai Peninsula or in Egypt proper. This is a very serious security concern, and the Egyptians are also worried that the Israelis will try to make the Gaza Strip their problem and dump it on the Egyptians. And that's why the Egyptians are very, very careful and very, very concerned about what happens in that border. There remains, though, a robust dialogue between Israel and its Arab neighbors about what to do about Gaza. I will say this: you notice that the Emiratis and the Saudis have not been as much a part of the conversation in the last month or so, and that's because they, like the Israelis, are concerned that Qatar and Turkey are working and negotiating somewhat on behalf of Hamas to leave Hamas in a position where it can be a major power, if not the major power, in the Gaza Strip. Again, that is a violation of President Trump's 20-point peace plan, and they don't want to invest. These Arab states don't want to invest in the Gaza Strip so long as Hamas remains either armed or influential there, recognizing that further violence is likely if that were to be the outcome of the president's plan.
President Trump has said he's chairing this board of peace. No board members have been announced yet. What do you see that board looking like? How do you think it's shaping up?
I'm not sure we're ever going to get there. I think it's going to be a board of one or one and a half. Tony Blair is the former British prime minister, is supposed to be part of this board. But until we get to the point where the Israelis are satisfied that Hamas is disarmed and won't play a role in the future governance, it's hard to imagine that this board existing other than in name. There has to be some effort to meet the actual conditions of the ceasefire in order for the board to first be established and then actually oversee the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip.
The West Bank noticeably absent from that 20-point peace plan. What is the future of that region, in your opinion?
Yeah, the situation in the West Bank is quite fraught. There's been an uptick in violence between Israelis and Palestinians. The week before Thanksgiving, there was a very serious incident in which Israeli settlers attacked Palestinians who were harvesting olives from their orchards. This is something that is ongoing and has been regular since the last 2 years, since Hamas's attack on Israel. Now, the Israelis will say that many of these settler attacks on Palestinians are in responses to a far greater number of Palestinian attacks on Israelis in the West Bank, though the Israelis are the only ones who make that claim. But they do recognize that they have a problem with radical settlers. The problem is that this government among the coalition are radical settlers. And the Minister of Public Security is a supporter of these settlers who are engaged in violence against Palestinian civilians in the West Bank. Clearly, the Israeli government has a problem here and is having trouble gaining control over the West Bank. In the meantime, the Israeli settler community continues to push forward and continues to put pressure on the government to ignore President Trump's declaration that there'll be no Israeli annexation of the West Bank in favor of declaring Israeli sovereignty over that territory.
Steve, we just have a few seconds.
So in general, it's a mess.
Apologies for interrupting you, but we just have a few moments left. You were recently in Israel. What is the mood like over there? Even anecdotally, how do people feel about Benjamin Netanyahu, and how do people feel about the people of Gaza?
Yeah, Israel is a divided country. There is a generalized mistrust of the government, although the prime minister does have core supporters whom I met. And given the fact that the opposition is pretty weak at the moment, there is some speculation that the prime minister could be reelected. In terms of the war in Gaza, Israelis have not seen the full extent of the damage that's been done to the Gaza Strip. But in general, their view is we had to do what we had to do. We were attacked on October 7th. They reject the accusations of genocide. And their view is, what were we supposed to do after 1,200 of our people were killed in one morning on October 7th?
All right, Stephen Cook, Senior Fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Stephen, thank you for your time this morning. We really do appreciate it.